Hello and welcome to World Talks. I'm your host, Sasha Farbach. Romania is at a political crossroads following a sudden resignation and the appointment of an interim provisional government. Now, the country is now in the grip of a high-stakes presidential race. Now, far-right leader George Simion, fresh off a decisive first-round win, is making waves with plans for a new administration, including a push to bring controversial figures back into the fold. As he prepares for a runoff against Centrist Bucharest Mayor Mr. Nicuşor Dan, all eyes are on what comes next for Romania's political future. Now, to break it all down, we're now joined by Radu Magdin, political analyst, CEO, SmartLink Communications, who's also worked as an honorary advisor to the Romanian Prime Minister in 2014 and 2015. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello.
Hi, let's try to untangle this a little bit. It's a political drama. I want to start first with the resignation yesterday of Romania's Prime Minister. Can you tell us why this has happened? What are the reasons for this, and what does that mean next for Romania's future?
It's a great question, and first of all, let me tell you that there's a lot of us, because we didn't expect to become an interim country on so many levels. We have an interim prime minister, and so on. So this element of extra political incertitude, which was brought to us by yesterday's prime ministerial resignation, was not needed. Essentially, the already former Prime Minister Ciolacu felt the need to take some kind of a political responsibility for the fact that the coalition candidate, Mr. Crin Antonescu, who, by the way, is not from his own party, is from another coalition party, the Liberal Party. So Mr. Antonescu did not succeed to enter the second round, and now Romanians are choosing in between two versions of change. A stronger, revolutionary version of change with Mr. Simion, or a more evolutionary version of change with Mr. Nicuşor Dan. So Mr. Ciolacu kind of felt the need to take his own responsibility, but unfortunately we paid some price for that, and the announcement of the Sunday's decisions. Our national bank has had to spend several billions to stabilize the leu, our national currency, yesterday.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of forces at work here, different candidates. A lot is at stake for Romania. Let's talk briefly also about Mr. Simion here. This is someone who, as we've already introduced, 40% of that first round, that second runoff on the 18th. Tell us a bit about what his stance is on things like NATO, and should Brussels be worried? Should other capitals in Europe be worried about him in the potential runoff, and what that means for Romania and Europe?
Brussels NATO shouldn't be worried. Brussels EU should be worried. Brussels NATO shouldn't be worried because Simion wants to be a MAGA guy, and he wants validation from the Trump administration. And overall, I would say he will not only be, firm in keeping our commitments on security, but for sure, the more we normalize also the transatlantic relationship, things will be fine. In Romania will be no surprises. Brussels EU, nonetheless, should be a little bit worried, because the way Simion is pitching himself to the Romanian audience is also as in somebody who will be a stronger voice in Brussels. And at the EU level, there are some reasonable concerns that he may try to join Orban or Fico in trying to make a wider flank of countries who are let's say less prone to support EU policies. The good news, nonetheless, is the fact that even if Simion becomes president, he's still the president of a country who has a certain amount of deficits and has to negotiate with Brussels. He Milanize, so normalize the Meloni way, like Mrs. Meloni did in Italy in the past 2 years, because a Romanian president also has to, together with the Romanian government, we have to pay our debt. We have to borrow from foreign markets. And because the still interim government enlarged our deficit last year because they raised salaries and pensions in electoral level. In the next years, we're going to have to do some fiscal adjustments, including perhaps raising taxes starting June.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, you brought up Meloni there from Italy, and that was going to be my question as well. I know he's called for a Melanization of Europe, and there's the question as well, does he represent, if the future goes ahead with him, does he represent more of what's more palpable under Meloni? Is he more of an Orban? Which kind of, let's say, political direction is he more suited for? Is this Euroscepticism, or is this something more sinister?
So in order to become Orban, you have to be organized, to put it very shortly. Like Orban, when he came back 2008, 2009, after 8 years in opposition, he had his team ready, he had a majority, and he had a plan. Simion doesn't necessarily have all of this, so I'm very optimistic for Romanian democracy in the future. I'm less optimistic about obtaining a parliamentary majority starting June, because several parties have as instincts either not to govern with Simion's AUR, who is now party number 2 in Romanian parliament, or from a government which could pay a price of improving our fiscal and doing some tougher reforms. So we may be faced with some weeks with an interim prime minister, the current prime minister, interim prime minister, Mr. Predoiu, until we have on who is next president. Most likely Mr. Simion, but Mr. Dan also has a chance. He manages to create a wave and raise position. And then with the parliamentary for a new majority. In case a new majority can't be found, most likely, no matter who's the next president, they'll try to find a cabinet with whom they can work. But guess what? The next prime minister and next president will have to negotiate with Brussels. So Melonization in a way is a must due to economic imperatives.
Mm-hmm. And on that, I'm curious, because you said, again, let's just reiterate that if we have the second round, Mr. Simion off the first round with 40%, what do you see of his chances? And if we now have Bucharest mayor, that choice the citizens have between more pro-European or something different, where do you think that's going to fall?
I was asked recently to stamp in one word the two candidates, and I said that the mayor of Bucharest is a decent guy, so decency, and Simion is a very energetic guy. He has the energy. Now, of course, it's always great if you have a decent president, but Mr. Nicuşor Dan has to shape up a little bit and be more energetic. Being nice is not enough to defeat Mr. Simion. So in case Mr. Simion manages to also, not make too many and keep the current level of participation, then he's the next president of Romania. Mr. Nicuşor Dan only wins in case there is a wave increasing the participation, and perhaps this wave is going to be also partially negative, because there's a lot of negativity these days as regards Mr. Simion and the possible economic impact. But again, it's not enough. It's not just about being negative on Simion. Nicuşor Dan has to be better as a political communicator.
Mm-hmm. And also, I'm curious to follow up a little bit about the impact. I mean, there's obviously a close tie with Romania and Moldova. Mr. Simion has said some controversial things in terms of Moldova as well. How is this going to play out? What do you make of his statements there and impact on Moldova?
For sure, one of the first steps done by a new presidential team will be to open channels with the Moldovan president and the Ukrainian president to make sure that our current, or let's say our next president, in case it's Simion, gets away from the interdiction these two countries have for him, because he has an interdiction to enter both Ukraine and Moldova.
Mm-hmm. And all that as well. You mentioned briefly about this whole mood, voters themselves. I mean, turnout was already roughly around 50%. How much will that impact this outcome? Will that play a factor in the runoff? And what about the diaspora, the Romanians abroad? How are they going to sway this election?
Historically, the diaspora was more mainstream, or they came to vote for people who are more reformist, but nowadays the diaspora seem to have moved in its majority towards AUR and Simion. So diaspora, we can't really count on the diaspora, if you frame it as such, to save the country from itself. Quite the contrary, the diaspora has contributed to Mr. Simion's victory. So it remains to be seen if something can be done in 2 weeks. For the moment, I can tell you, it's also for Mr. Simion election to lose, not just for Nicuşor Dan to win. So, for example, Simion yesterday on a TV interview that he wants to around 500,000 civil servants, which could prove a backlash, in terms of voters in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm. And also, I'm interested because there is a pledge, or let's say a kind of a statement that Simion has made, that he'd like to include Mr. Georgescu in some kind of role in government. Is that possible? How do you see this, and what's this potentially mean as well?
This is what scares a lot of voters, and this could be one of the turn-ups for Simion's election. Of course, Simion has counted on Georgescu's support, and one of the reasons why he scored It's also seen a merger of Simon's score in November, Georgescu's score in November, and the bonus of revolt of part of the people, like last November's cancellation of elections. But nonetheless, Mr. Georgescu is somebody who, for anybody who reads modern economics, has some dangerous ideas. So the more we hear about Georgescu, the more it's a turnoff to elect Simion.
All right, so it's going to, of course, be an election that's going to be vital, not just for Romania, as we've already established, but for all of Europe and the world. Thank you so much there, Radu Magdin, for all your insights.
It's
very,
me,
very interesting. Thank you. And thank you for watching. It concludes World Talks, but stay tuned. Much more coming up right here on TVP World. Goodbye.